those kind of adventure car search stories are perfect because you never really know what the full story is when you see something interesting parked in a parking lot or driving along the road. And so capturing those has always been the thing. But in collaborating with other YouTubers, opportunities come up, different things that we could do. And a guy that has about 1.5 million followers was over telling some stories, and we were sitting around my fire afterwards just talking, and I said, have you ever thought about doing like a Top Gear cheap car challenge? And he's like, we couldn't do that. I'm like, why not? We do that every day. We buy the worst examples of the coolest cars on earth, and we try to not die in them. Like that is Top Gear. That's why we do it, is because we grew up loving the greatest show that was ever created. And
it's a great show.
I mean, it was the Super Bowl of viewership every week.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the most successful television program of all time. But they haven't been able to recreate the magic of it with the subsequent hosts.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Clarkson punches people in the face. They can't do that anymore, and they probably should have just let him. Let's be honest. But there's things you get away with. Now, and Amazon spent an insane amount of money bringing them all over for the Grand Tour. But then they realized that it only makes sense from Amazon Prime's membership perspective the first time. After that, everybody already signed up, so they were seeing almost no marginal gain to keep making the series. So after 3 years, they're like, we're just going to do the occasional specials. We know you're under contract to keep doing stuff with us, but we're not going to pay $3 million an episode to keep making this stuff. And so I'm talking to this guy. I'm like, look, we'll just find another friend. We'll set up some challenge that is just based on what cars we want to buy this week, and we'll go out and do it. And so we got a sponsor to kind of help support it and help with the production effort. And we decided, since the most current thing at the time in terms of automotive news was the release of the new C8 Corvette, the mid-engine Corvette that everybody had been anticipating, we would just decide what the coolest car we could buy for the same price as that, which was like a $59,000 base price. And we'd meet somewhere, and we all had to be, the three of us were going to be judging a class at the Amelia Island Concours, so it made a perfect sense as a finish line. And magically, that happened to be the week before the world shut down. And so we literally finished filming it and then all had to be home for forever, which was also serendipitous because we were all having children. And so I had a daughter born. My wife actually went into labor while we were at Amelia Island. And so we had to kind of speed things up because I'm 400 miles from home and I'm going to have to drive really fast. And so fortunately it stopped.
Luckily you had a good car to do it in.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. And because my gifting, if there's anything, is taking people to the hospital when their wives are having babies.
Yes, for our viewership, Ed drops that because Ed was the guy who drove me to the hospital when my wife went into labor, and I needed a ride in the record-breaking car.
Yes,
the record-breaking Cannonball car. And I said, "Hey Ed, can you get me there fast?" He's like, "Yes, I can."
I have a special set of skills, Craig.
It was, and actually we're pretty close to it. It was like a half-hour drive normally. We got there in about 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That was good times. But it's all it's been an awesome journey. And so we shot that one. It did well. It got about 13 million views, that first series. We just finished our second one. So that was, in the first one we bought a Ferrari 360 Spider, which is kind of a traditional great option at about $60,000. The other guy bought an Aston Martin V12 Vantage S
for $60,000.
For $69,000, he stretched the budget a little bit. He claimed that his C8 would have had options on it, and I bought a 2006 Lamborghini Gallardo Spider with a manual transmission, which would normally be about $120,000, but mine was in a Santa Monica mudslide flood, and so it was in terrible condition. Had a branded title, and was the most fun I could have possibly had.
That's awesome.
That's it. So the latest premise was that we had to find the most depreciated supercars that we could. And so we just wrapped that. We shot it out in Vegas, and just got home. So it was a spoiler. It's an Aston Martin Vanquish, a Maserati Coupe GT, and a Mercedes CL65 AMG, and all of them were about 90% depreciated from their original MSRP.
Wow. And were they all falling apart?
The CL was pretty solid. The Maserati was an absolute piece of garbage. It was a manual transmission car, which is quite rare and cool, but I actually found the car for the guy because he couldn't find a manual one that he really wanted, and so I found him one, and I was like, it sounds pretty bad. It had 120-something thousand miles on it. Absolute absolute piece of garbage. But it broke in very entertaining ways the entire time, which is kind of what you want for a production like this.
Yeah, just like
yeah.
Top Gear. Yeah.
Exactly. So I ended up with a 2003 Aston Martin Vanquish that had spent the last 7 years in Colombia. And not South Carolina or the district. But I had a buddy's drug dog sniff around it. He said I was in the clear, but he said, we need to take all the panels out to be sure. And I was like, well, let's just not worry about that. So it was a fantastic car. It ran on half the motor most of the time, and it didn't like the heat, which was a problem.